Mike, in your own words, how would you describe the difference between agile portfolio management and traditional portfolio planning?
I mean, I think you've expressed it quite well. I think it's key. You know, people are used to hearing agile, and it's almost become an overused term. But actually, it's all about agility. It's all about being able to respond rapidly to the changes around you, and not to sort of blind yourself to differences in the environment that you're working with. And you know, your customer mix is going to change over the years. And if you are sort of approaching things in the same way you always have traditionally, you don't have the perfect model. And the whole idea in business is to adapt to what your environment is. You have to be adaptable, otherwise the business will eventually fail. None of them is guaranteed a permanent life cycle. So you know, one thing that we did is you know, we saw that we were originally structured with we were looking at regions. So we said we have an Asia Pacific region, we have a Europe region or EMEA region, and then we have an Americas region. And we were trying to sort of leverage the knowledge of the area and the market. But actually that wasn't well defined. You know, we were saying, hey, people in Europe will know the most about Europe. Well, that's not necessarily true, because Europe is made up of several different markets, which are based on different product types. So what we finally decided was a more clever approach, is to take a channel-based approach, and to actually say, for example, you know, this is going to be consumer electronics, but let's do consumer electronics globally. So let's not just look at one area, but actually think of the product as the base. So that's, you know, and I can expand more on that, you know, separately, but it's that ability to say, look, maybe our current structure is not exactly the right structure to fit what the needs of the products or the markets are. What can we do to adapt? So it's agility and adaptability to the situation.
Let's stay on that topic, Mike. This idea of shifting from geographic operations to product lines. I mean, that's a transition that a lot of our viewers are considering or dealing with now. Can you provide a little more detail as to why that shift was necessary, and how you accomplished it?
It was how we accomplished it is fairly challenging. I mean, you do have to kind of establish a break point. You have to say, you know, listen, we're used to doing it this way. We did have to sort of reorganize members of our teams internally. It was a top-down direction, but we basically said, look, our subscription broadcast channel, for example, has a very specific set of needs. These are companies like Comcast or Dish. You know, they have a certain way that they use the remote. They have a certain need for the remote, what type of remote they have. On the other hand, if you do HVAC systems, which are air conditioning, that's a completely different industry. And so that's going to have a whole different set of needs, and those needs are going to be similar across the board globally. And so you actually also, if you look at your technical teams, because we have you know, a set of engineers with different capabilities, you want to focus those teams on the areas and supporting the areas that they are most expert in. So you know, when we in the HVAC industry, again, for example, that's a very specific set of engineering talent. Or security, you know, is another example. You leverage your technical skill more effectively, and mine the needs of the markets with a different view, which is a little bit more based on, I think it's a more proper view, because it's based on complexities and opportunities that relate to that specific product, which are actually a little bit more uniform across markets than with the other structure. I hope that answers the question.
Yes, it does. What were the biggest obstacles you encountered, and what have the outcomes been to this point to making that shift?
The biggest obstacles were internal acceptance, people getting used to, you know, obviously our metrics were structured in one way, so we're shifting directions. So some of your older data is irrelevant. People, you know, people's comfort zones had to change among the sales team. You know, so some people were used to working with a certain customer base and in a particular location. Now they suddenly had to be thinking globally. So it was there was definitely resistance initially at the sales level. We had to build a stronger marketing team. We were a little weak on marketing in the past. We've actually managed to fortify that quite well and try to establish roadmaps for the different channels. So I guess the biggest obstacle in a nutshell is internal resistance to change. The customers are willing and interested. It's the organization itself that has to get used to the new structure. So it really helps to have top-down backing.
What a great example of the PMO of program management leading out in organizational change.